Okay. Hi, so this is Rachel. I'm going to be talking to you today about tarot cards, and I'm just going to be going over the history and some cool spreads and like what they're used for. So to start off, tarot cards were invented in Italy in like the 1430s. They're most used around like the 15th century, like mid 15th century. I tried really hard to find a singular name for like who created tarot cards, but I couldn't really find one. Tarot cards are really popular, and there's lots of different types of decks in a lot of different parts of the world. They're originally made to play games like tarot key, French tarot, and Austrian Kongrufen. But nowadays they're more used for like readings and more spiritual things. So the most well-known deck is the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. It was created in 1909. It was created by Pamela Colman. It's still the most widely used deck today. This is one of the most common decks you'll see if you ever go get a reading. And this one was considered one of the most revolutionary decks because of, I think, just because of like the art on it for one. There's a picture of like what the old cards looked like, but this was pretty revolutionary. And then it came with the guidebook as well, which helped people who bought the deck learn how to like do spreads and readings along with to go with the cards. So yes, this is one of the most revolutionary decks. So now we're going to kind of get into the cards. So there's 4 suits that vary depending on the deck. So my 4 suits are actually pictured right here. So we have wands, swords, chalices, and coins. It's different depending on the deck. Like the Rider-Waite deck is swords, cups, pentacles, and wands. So it's a little bit different, but they all kind of have the same theme. Each suit has 14 cards numbered 1 through ace, and then has 4 face cards. And that's generally how those cards work across all of the decks that you can find. Next is the major arcana. There's 21 of these, and they're known as like trump cards. So the Fool can be played as a trump card, or it can be played to avoid following suit depending on the game. And in a tarot card reading, these are the most important cards to pay attention to. So people usually say, if anything, like if you get anything out of this reading, pay attention to these cards because these are the most important. And these major arcana cards are the same throughout pretty much all decks. The art is different, but all of the decks will include these major arcana cards. So there'll always be a devil, the fool, the sun, stars, the lovers, etc. There'll always be those in every deck, for the most part. So next I'm going to get into games and spreads. Tarot cards are used in many different ways by many different people. 2 main uses again are games and readings. Readings can be more or less serious. They can be taken more like fortune teller-esque or more like just for fun. Me and my friends generally just have fun with the cards, take them with a grain of salt. None of us are like psychics or anything, so it's more just for fun. As I kind of mentioned earlier, these cards right here are kind of what the original tarot cards looked like. They had like numbers at the top and then had really beautiful art at the bottom. So they look a little bit different from like the tarot cards today, but those are still used for like games and stuff. So Taroki is actually played a lot like euchre from what I can understand. There's 4 players who use 62 out of the 78 cards. The cards have points. And then the rest of the game is played like euchre. I mean, you have partners. There's different rules here and there that are different because there's 68 cards or 62 cards that you're using, and it's a lot different from your standard like 52 card deck of that we usually use to play euchre. But other than that, it plays like euchre. But next I want to get into different spreads and how to do readings. So there's lots of different kinds of spreads. The 4-card spread and the Celtic Cross are the most common, and those are mostly used for beginners. But other readings, there's like past life readings, zodiac spreads, wish spread, and lots more. But yeah, the 4-card spread and the Celtic Cross are the most popular. So the 4-card spread is a past, present, and future reading. you would have the person that you're giving the reading to shuffle the cards. That's really, really important when it comes to tarot deck reading. So you'd have them shuffle the cards however they want. They can shuffle them like this. They can bridge them, do whatever. And then you would spread them out all over the table like this, like just in a little like nice neat thing. And you'd say, okay, pick 4 cards and then put them face down in my hand. And then once they did that, you would lay the cards out in this order, and then you would flip them over like left to right, not like up, because the rotation of the card is actually really important. So let's say the first card you pulled was like the Sun. So that's Major Arcana, and then so you'd go to the Major Arcana section in your guidebook, you'd find the Sun, and then you would read the description for that card. And then for each card, there's an upright and a reverse, so you really have to pay attention to that you're not reading, if the card is reversed, you're not reading the upright, because that will influence the reading. So you basically just like interpret what the meaning of the card is, kind of expand on it, elaborate, and then elaborate on what the card means in the context of the spot that it's in. So the definition of each card is the same no matter what, like the book doesn't change, but you kind of interpret it for the spread that you're using. And then you just go through for all 4 cards, and then at the end of the reading, you're like, that's pretty much it. So they're really simple. This one's really simple, at least. They get more complex as you go on, but that's like one of the simplest ones you can do. Next is the Celtic Cross, the 10-card spread. This is a really common spread, especially for beginners. And this gets more into like the fortune telling side of things, because generally this spread, you ask a question, whether it's about a relationship or pursuing a job or pursuing a major. You ask a open-ended question, because the cards give you a really like broad response or broad advice. So you kind of, as the questioner, you would kind of interpret that, take it with a grain of salt, interpret it how you how it's coming to you. Generally, you have the questioner think of a question, and then I don't have them tell me because I don't want to be biased in my reading that I give them. So I'm just like, keep your question to yourself, shuffle the cards, and then you draw the top 10 cards, and then you put them in order according to how this goes. And then each spot has a different meaning, so I'll just read it out of my guidebook really quick. So the first card represents the questioner, the second card represents the present challenge, the third card is the mind's ambition, the fourth card is the heart's desire, then the past, the present, and the future. And then over here is like the most important section of cards, because this gives you like your suggested outcome or your advice for your question. So 7 is advice or suggested action, 8 is context for suggested action, so it just kind of goes into depth. 9 is the core hopes and fears, and then 10 is the foreseeable outcome. So those are like the most important areas, and that's what kind of gives you your advice. Again, the more major arcana shows up here, the more you're supposed to pay attention to those. There's also no bad cards, there's just like warning cards. The Tower is a really popular warning card. Everyone always freaks out when they get the Tower, but a lot of the warning cards just mean that change is coming, which can be scary. I know like humans generally don't like change. So yeah, there's even like the Death card isn't necessarily a bad card. It just means that things are changing. Like death literally in itself is change. So yeah, I think that's all I have. Tarot cards are really fun. There's a million different things you can do with them. You can create your own games, create your own spreads. They're beautiful pieces of art most of the time. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have.